call the meeting of Climate and Energy to order. And for the record, we do have a quorum. Our first thing to do today is to approve the minutes from January 24, 23. Representative Kraft, I was going to get, I was going to switch it up a little bit, but you're looking already. So. Representative Kraft, would you be able to move the minutes?
Madam Chair, so moved.
Any discussion to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The motion prevails and the minutes are adopted. So today we are hearing a bill, House File 299 from Representative Newton. If you want to make your way and bring whoever you'd like, but state your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. I'm Representative Jerry Newton, and I'm here to present House File 299. And I would like to move House File 299.
Excellent. So House File 299, the motion is to move House File 299 to be laid over for possible inclusion. Welcome to committee. Well, you're already here, so you're part of our committee. Welcome to your testifiers. And tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. This bill is for $5 million in renewable development funds for the National Sports Center, primarily for the ice arena. The roof is in need of its normal repair, and we want to install solar on the roof. I have Mr. Todd Johnson, who's the Executive Director of the Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission, and Mr. Steve Olson, who's the CFO of the Sports Center, to tell you more about the, what the funding is going to be used for and the need of the funding. So without further ado.
Go ahead, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Great. Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Todd Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission. I'm also the Executive Director of the National Sports Center Foundation. Most of you are familiar with the facility, but I'll just do like a really quick helicopter remembrance for you all about the facility, because I have the luxury of being only the second person ever to run the facility, and I think it's obviously one of the real gems in this state. Not only is it an opportunity for citizens of the state to recreate, but we typically bring in a non-COVID situation, about $96 million a year in economic development money, just through hotel stays and the number of folks who sign up for our events and that sort of thing. Obviously, the facility has been around for since 1987. Governor Perpich created the Minnesota Amateur Sports Commission, and for those of you who don't know, the facility was created in a really unique way, and a challenging but I think smart way. The state of Minnesota purchased the land and built the facility, and at that time it was built to be the Olympic Training Center for the Atlanta Games. Some of you might remember we only lost that bid by 4 votes, and those games went to Atlanta, and then the state of Minnesota was in a position, what are we going to do with this facility? And I'm sure many of you have been there with your kids or your grandkids, either for hockey or for soccer or some activity like that. We are busy all the time. We are a very small state agency in terms of our state budget. It's about a $350,000 state budget. We don't get any operating money at all from the state of Minnesota. So we like to say we eat what we kill, and we have to be successful at running events, and we are, but we're certainly not flowing at the rim with money. We basically take the $350,000 the state mask, we turn that into the Minnesota Amateurs, or the National Sports Center Foundation, which is about a $14.7 million business. We just did our budget. As most of you know, if you've ever been up there, we're full all the time. There's activity around the clock. Only two weekends of the year are the 8 sheets of ice closed. So it is busy all the time, but even with all that activity, we need to raise, or I need to raise about $1.7 million a year in sponsorship to make the place work, which is fine. I get that. That's my job, and we do that. But there is an agreement with the state, not for operating funds, but to maintain the facility. And right now, it's about 30 years old. And there are various needs that, and that activity is going to be we're going to be talking about that in the bonding bill. But my goal before I leave there is to ensure that not only is this the largest amateur sports facility, the best amateur sports facility, you know, we run the 3rd largest soccer tournament in the world. My colleagues are in Brazil right now, recruiting teams in Brazil to come here in July. It's a fantastic opportunity. We want that to continue, but I also want it to be the greenest. We've got a great story already on water. DNR permits us to pump about 175 million gallons a year to irrigate our 700 acres. In a normal non-drought year, we pump somewhere between 25 and 35 million gallons, so we save over 100 million gallons a year because of our ditch retention system. It's our first sort of foray into getting things right on the green side of things. Now, this bill is about solar and how we can figure out a way to help eat at our $1.2 million a year in energy costs. Basically, if you think about keeping, whether it's our 8 sheets of ice frozen or the bubble that we have up, it's a lot of energy. And to the extent this bill were to pass, this is probably about 20% of our energy use. 20% is more than our bottom line, so 20% on $1 million is, you know, a couple $100,000 would make that big of a difference. The goal is, and I believe it truly can be, my colleagues here to explain some of those details to the extent you want them. This could be a net zero facility and without too much effort. Obviously, you know, that means that we would create as much energy as we use and figure out a way with our energy provider or through battery storage to make sure that we can either wheel the power or we can use it. And the neat thing is we have, of our 8 Zambonis, 6 of them are electric. Our golf cart fleet is completely electric. So we think we're sort of on the precipice of really making great strides in this, and this would be a great head start moving forward. I'll have Steve talk just a little bit about the project itself moving forward to make it completely net zero.
Welcome to committee. Mr. Olson, please state your name for the record. And for the record, Steve's my neighbor.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Steve Olson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the National Sports Center Foundation. We're the nonprofit that operates the facility in Blaine on behalf of the Amateur Sports Commission. Specifically to the super rink, number one, it's the only ice rink that the state of Minnesota owns. You own it. We take care of it. And the 3 big things in our world are the production of ice, air quality, and the cost of ice to the consumer going forward. Production of ice, we're about to swap out our R22 plants for ammonia. To resurface those, as Todd said, we'd like to go to 100% electric Zambonis and electric edgers, which takes us into complying with another state law that has to do with carbon monoxide levels on ice rinks, which I don't know how many years ago, there were hearings in this room about carbon monoxide produced by resurfacing equipment and the need to get it evacuated from the building. So if we go all electric, we comply with that. And then the good part about our rink is everything works in tens. We use 10 megawatts of energy. It costs us about $1 million. When we save 1.8, we save $180,000. $180,000, as Todd said, is more than our bottom line on our annual budget. We typically put that back into reducing the cost to the participant. So if we're not paying for energy, we can keep our ice price low, which keeps the product to the parent sustainable. It isn't going to be flatlined, but it isn't going to be on a rapidly rising curve. So we're looking down the road economically, we're looking down the road environmentally, and in my world as the chief operator up there, this is the beginning of a set of phases that we'd like to get involved in with more solar, more water catchment, and basically a reduction in urban heat island on the facility. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Swizin, oh, I'm sorry. Well, Representative.
Yeah,
Swizin-
whatever. No, it's fine. You got a list.
Representative Carroll, sorry about that. Go ahead. Oh, please, that is so Minnesota.
All right, I'm going to go. Madam Chair, to the testifier, just, so the total ask is $5 million out of the RDA. Is that simply for the acquisition of solar panels, or does that actually pay for replacement of the roof?
Madam Chair, Representative, it pays for the replacement of the roof of the south 4 sheets of ice and part of the roof of the north 4 that's waiting for an insurance settlement. The $5 million would not cover the total amount, but we're not going to put solar on an old roof. So it's taken care of.
Thank you. And just kind of, thank you, Madam Chair. And to the testifier, just how does that replacing a roof on a public building benefit the ratepayers of Xcel Energy?
Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, we're in Connexus Energy territory.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I understand either, purchasing or fixing the actual, like buying solar panels with this fund, because that's essentially, it's a tax on nuclear for Xcel ratepayers. I'm trying to understand the ask for roof replacement, I guess. Why would you ask for that out of this fund and not go get a bonding bill? Or why, that seems more, because that's ratepayers' money, Xcel Energy pays more money for it. I mean, I get it if it's for energy generation, but, you have 700 acres. Like, have you looked at putting solar panels not on the roof and just putting them like around the softball field, so like people could not have to bring their own tents to stay out of the sun? I mean, that seems like a nice thing.
Shade. Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, obviously you've been to our facility that doesn't have any trees. No, our long-range plan would be to put canopies over all of our parking lots, which is about 25 acres. Interesting question. I think you can't install solar without a roof that can handle the weight, and I can't divide those.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the current roof structure would have to get replaced, or just like, are we talking new tar, like, and rock? Or is this like, we're gonna go in there, buy gussets and steel, and, because it's not strong enough?
Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, this would be a reinforcement of parts of the roof and tar and gravel. In the front, the front 4 sheets of ice are in a sloped metal roof that has some damage from hail that'll be repaired. So this particular bill only addresses some small parts of that to make it functional for the installation of solar.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so, is it kind of just as, it doesn't necessarily say in the bill what percentage is for what? Is most of the 800, I think it's like a 900 addition, or 900,000 or 800,000 addition, is that 19% increase for the ask of the bill from last year, an increase in solar panels? Or is that 19% increase as a result of an increase in roofing materials?
Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, it's a cost increase in the entire world of doing work. We just completed a maintenance building that was significantly over because of cost overruns.
Representative Swazinski.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think we all have bills that we have to try to capture that, but I'm just trying to get at the actual like energy generation portion. So like if we were to increase just the cost, like if we were just to have a bill that had solar panels and we went and found a different account like state payers of Minnesota, like what would be the real ask if it was just solar, looking for solar panels and stuff like that?
Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, probably a little under 2.75.
Okay, sounds,
Representative Swazinski.
thank you, Madam Chair. Just how far into Connexus territory is this facility? Like, is it right in the middle of it, or like how many miles is it from Xcel ratepayers?
Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, there is an Xcel substation about 2.5 miles east of us that serves an industrial park. and that's about as close as we can get. Our airport, Anoka Airport, is served by XL. Our relationship with Connexus is actually on good footing right now. They're going to supply some letters of support for this bill. But we're in their territory. We're their second or third largest user.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just, just from a revenue, it sounds like you would estimate that if this is installed, it would replace about 20% of your energy bill. Do you foresee, what a current hour of ice costs at the facility, and how much lower will that 20% reduction in outflow cost, or will it go to potentially increase wages for workers and things like that?
Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, the savings there would be used to not have energy-related increases to the cost of ice. We're around $230 an hour right now, and the more flat line we can keep that, the happier we are. But ice arenas are expensive things to operate, and what we'd like to do is just circulate this back into that cost.
Thank you. Just one last
Yeah,
question. I'll be done.
just 1 second. On the point before, Representative Stevenson had a point to make to just add to the conversation. Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Swazinski, I was just going to tell you that because I live in the area and also because I'm a nerd who looks at maps, there's a super cool map you can look online that shows service territories. But anyway, I live in the area, which is why I really know this. They're actually very close to XL service territory, and a lot of people like myself who live in XL service territory make use of the National Sports Center because it's an asset for the whole area.
Okay.
But it's a cool map. If you ever want to see it, I'm happy to direct you to it.
Sure. Well, I've seen some. I just was asking because I didn't have the map right in front of me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that segue. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my last question is, I forget what it was because I was disturbed, but it was a good
I
one.
lost your train of thought.
Yeah, you did.
I'm sorry.
I'll take blame for that.
Yeah. You can have a,
I'll think of it. I'll raise my hand again. Thanks.
okay. I look forward to it. Representative Carroll.
Thank you. Well, it's clear that Representative Swazinski has a brilliant mind because you asked the question I was going to ask.
Oh, well, I just stole it from you. That's all I did.
No,
If you'd have went first, it would have been yours, and I could have accused you of the same thing.
exactly.
So,
But just to follow up, so this is you're replacing the roof already. You plan to replace the roof. This isn't a solar array on top of a roof that doesn't need to be replaced. Do I have that right?
Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, the roof on the front floor will be replaced. The roof on the back will need to be replaced within the next 5 years.
Okay.
Representative Carroll.
And thank you. So
Right. Yeah, and to clarify, the front four are not being replaced for this particular project.
and the solar array will go on the part that's replacing the roof or the entire roof?
Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, the solar array will go on the southern half of the front four. The roof is sloped, so it'll go on the southern exposure of that roof. On the back four, it goes over the whole roof, and on the maintenance service building that's attached to the back of the back four, it goes over the entire roof, and that roof is ready to go. It's brand new.
Representative Carroll.
And this falls in the territory that my mother-in-law calls might as well. That is, if you're going to do a project, you might as well do this or that. There are extras that you wouldn't otherwise do. It sounds like this is what that is. I think it's a great idea. Is that true?
Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, yes.
Okay. Quite simply, that's what I thought.
Representative.
Madam Chair, thank you. So I'm a little surprised to hear that you don't have electric Zambonis now. In Plymouth, we switched to all electric. Plymouth has a big ice center, as you probably know, especially if you live in Minnetonka. Maybe your family or friends play in our Plymouth Ice Center. So do you not have electric?
I think you may have misheard. Mr. Olson.
Madam Chair, Representative, we have 8 Zambonis, 6 are electric.
Oh, okay.
All of our edgers are now electric.
Thank you, Chair. I did mishear. Thank you.
Any
And Madam Chair, if I could just add.
Yes.
This is a state facility, and it has some $79 million in deferred maintenance. 39 million of that is critically deferred. And if we, try to go for funding for a roof, we're not going to get, all of the other critical things that we need done. And to Representative Swerdinsky's concern about being within the Excel Energy area, we have used RDA funds in the past for facilities outside of the RDA area, in fact, some in northern Minnesota. And I might add, former chair of the Senate Energy Committee, Senator Senjum, is on our board, and he was very much in favor of this last year and tried to, like so many things, it died in the process. So we've had support from the Senate side as well on this.
Thank you for that. Representative Igo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So before I came to the legislature, I was on a board for a steering committee for the IRA Civic Center, which is in Grand Rapids, which I have to brag is the voted number one on KFAN as the best hockey arena in the state of Minnesota. So this is a big deal I'm talking about here. So I sat on this board for a year and did a lot of research on kind of the work you guys are going to be doing there. So my question that I want to lead to is, how old is the front roof? Because what I don't want to see is solar getting installed, and then all of a sudden we find out that even with, shimmying up this front roof, it's going to need to be replaced. Now we're taking solar panels off. Yeah. The second part is, I believe, if I heard right in your testimony, you're waiting on an insurance claim for the rest of the roof from probably the hailstorms, if I had to guess. So then the other thing I want to couple with that is, I know like the IRA in Grand Rapids deals with snow load on it. We actually need to be shoveling it and snow blowing it right now to keep up with that, why it's working on getting replaced. So my concern is that in the math for this equation right now? Because one, I worry about two solar panels don't work too well and there's snow on them. But what's that extra weight going to be with a solar panel plus maybe 12, 14 inches of snow sitting on top of those solar panels? Is there a removal plan, or is just how is all that going to factor in?
Mr. Johnson.
Madam Chair, Representative, first of all, I grew up in Nashwauk, so I'm very familiar with your ice rink over there. And it is a good one.
Yes.
My nephew plays there right now for the Thunderbirds, right? Thunderhawks.
Thunderhawks.
Yeah, Thunderhawks.
Yeah.
Let me try to explain. You asked about the age, and you asked about, obviously, the front four rinks were the first four built. And those are the ones that had hail damage. And that claim has been processed, and we're about ready to do those repairs.
Okay.
Right? The back four sheets are newer, and the roofs need some joist structuring, just some shoring up to make sure that they can handle the weight. And then the third roof is the roof that was most recently built. That's our maintenance building that we got the bonding money from the state of Minnesota. Actually, we needed $5 million and we got $3 million. And one of my brilliant colleagues said, you know what, if we attach this maintenance building to the back of the ice rink, we only have to build 3 walls and we don't have to do this infrastructure. So we stretched and made it work and got the same square footage thanks to a very smart colleague who figured out how to do that. We built that ready to go. So you're absolutely right. We don't want to put any solar up there that's not going to be able to handle the weight load and not be able to be used going forward. That's our plan. Earlier question was a really good one about our why wouldn't you, if you got all this area, these fields, why wouldn't you just put them on the fields? We really don't have that many. We're at capacity right now, and unfortunately, just because of the condition of some of those fields and not having artificial turf field, we just lost out on an event that would have been $14 million a year for 5 years from Major League Soccer that wanted to bring their, it's called MLS Next. They wanted to bring that tournament up here from Dallas. They were here during the All-Star game. So that's in another bill, but we don't have any other place to put these other than on roofs and to do the canopies over the parking lots. But that's enough to get us the power we need for the full facility.
Representative Igo.
Right. So the one thing and thank you for those answers. Those were good. The snow removal on the panels. Because like I said, if we're looking at the math you provided on the back of this paperwork here, we're looking at, 1.8 kilowatts for the roof arrays. And, if they hit their 25 years, they're talking no hail, we're talking no damage, no broken panels, and the panels are always free of snow. We're actually not even going to get our return on the $5 million we're investing. So those are the reason I asked the questions. Do you have plans to make sure these solar panels are going to be as good as they can be to get us that return investment? Because otherwise we're losing on this.
Mr. Johnson?
Madam Chair, Representative, I will just say there is a list so long of manufacturers who've contacted us about the potential of for this to happen that everyone has a different, and maybe someone's going to testify about what their product is. It sounds like it's improving every year. I'll tell you, my colleagues are up on those roofs all the time, as you would know. It sounds like they are in Rapids as well. Our job is to take care of the state facility, and that's what we do. We would do everything in our power to make sure that the weight load was fine, that the snow was off, that it's the best panels moving forward that could handle that sort of weight moving forward. Hopefully this is the last winter like this in a long time, but
Okay.
Representative Igo?
Thank you, Matt. I'll just kind of close on that. Those are just the questions I want to ask. You know, we're trying to be good stewards of, ratepayers' money on this. Just want to make sure we get the best return on investment on it. And I also don't want it to turn into a funding problem for you, right? If, you don't have good insurance on it, then you lose half your panels, or you find out you do need to have 4 paid staff up there shoveling off, panels once a month. I mean, those are things I just want to make sure we're thinking about, so we're not coming back here in 2 years saying, oh, it failed, now we need another $5 million.
And I think Representative Swazinski remembered his question.
Thank you, I did. It took me a little bit. I just want to talk about rates. Thank you, Madam Chair. So you said currently the ice cost is about $240 per hour, or 230. Okay, thank you. What percentage of that cost would you say is electrical?
you know what?
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chair, Representative, I'll just jump in, and Steve knows all these numbers, but I like to say that, being a lifelong Minnesotan, that it's actually a public policy decision that was made by you and your colleagues, and from the history of this sport, that ice rinks, ice arenas, whether they're municipal, whether they're high schools, or however they're operated, lose money. And most of them are subsidized by either the municipality or another governmental entity. We are not. So we would never make it on the 230. It actually is about $400 an hour to run a sheet of ice. We have economies of scale because of the 8 sheets of ice and because the sharing the number of employees and just the efficiencies that we have. I mean, our crews are fantastic. They work at the Excel Center too. But it really has been a subsidized, which I think is perfect. I love hockey, and I think there's been great public policy decisions, Title IX decisions that have been, I still think someone could write a PhD thesis on what you all did with Mighty Ducks in addressing Title IX issues with girls playing hockey. No other state has done anything like you've done here at this legislature. But the cost of an ice rink is never covered by the hourly rate.
Representative Swazinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just trying to learn a little bit. Okay, so it'd be your real costs are probably $400. You charge $230. So the deficit is made up through state funding, local funding, and then obviously corporate sponsorships and the rest.
Mr. Johnson.
There's a couple ways to answer that. We do not receive any subsidy from the state to run our rink. The only way we really can make it work on $230 an hour are the tournaments that we run. The volume that we run is so much different, and the fact that we have daytime ice. We host the USA Women's Olympic team. They have all their practice area during the summer. We actually sell more ice in the summertime. So believe it or not, we try to make it up on volume. We host 5 tournaments from a junior hockey league called the NAHL. There's the USHL, there's the NAHL. Sure. They're out of Dallas, but they have all 5 of their tournaments here. And when they have a tournament here, it is from Thursday to a Monday, all day long. Every hour we have to sell them, and there are 96 or 98 teams that come. 3 of them are from Minnesota. Sure. So they're from Anchorage to Alabama that come here and play in that tournament. That's how we make it work. Okay. We really have to have those events and be aggressive. As you look around, we can't sit there and wait for the phone to ring. Okay. We have to make sure that we program the facility and that it's full all the time.
Representative Swazinski.
Yes, and just, so what percentage of that 400, Madam Chair, is electrical cost?
Mr. Olson?
Madam Chair, Representative, it's about 15%.
15%. Madam Chair, so approximately $60 an hour in that, and then, so of that $60, then you would estimate that 20% of that $60 would get recouped through this program?
16 to
Olson?
20%.
Okay, thank you. And just from a, Madam Chair, how are the workers categorized? Are you state employees there, or what are you?
Madam Chair, Representative, we're a 501c3.
Okay.
We fall into the same category as some of the other nonprofits like the zoo, the Historical Society. We're in the state consolidated financial report.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions for these folks? If not, maybe we'll move on to public testimony. I think we have one person signed up to testify. Thank you for
Thank you.
being here today.
We're not going anywhere.
Oh, sure. Who do you want to ask it of? I'm sorry.
No, just whenever they're, so I'm late, so if this has been covered already, just what is the size of the solar array that they're talking about putting in?
Mr. Olson, do you want to catch Representative Garofalo up a little bit?
Madam Chair, Representative, it's about 1.8 megawatts. And the total service need is 10.
Okay, so
Representative Garofalo.
it's not a, I thought it was a rooftop array,
It is.
It is.
and it's a 1.8 megawatt solar array?
10
Mr. Olson.
acres?
Yeah,
You have
it's-
10 acres of roof space?
We have around 5.
Okay, so, Madam Chair, you can't get 1.8 megawatts of capacity factor for
Helio
solar for 5
numbers.
acres.
I don't know how the math works.
One to
We
seven.
have, Mr. Logan O'Grady. He might be able to help us out
Hey,
too.
whatever, I just want to know the size of the array. Because I see in the presentation here, it says the energy produced would be 1.8 million, I assume that's kilowatt hours. That's what the presentation said. Is that what people meant, was that the amount of generation produced is 1.8 million kilowatt hours?
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Olson?
Representative, I have a Helio report from Cedar Creek that's at 1.959.
Maybe 14 acres then.
I don't know how
This
a
isn't-
kilowatt equates to a acre, so.
Well, so, Madam, if I may.
Please do. I appreciate
I
this
don't mean to
tutorial.
turn this into the Pat Garofalo lecture.
No,
hour,
it's all good.
So,
It's all good. We got time.
so we have
That's the
a,
one you
you
wanna
know,
use?
we have the installed capacity of a solar array. Okay, so let's just say it's we'll say 1 megawatt.
Okay.
Okay, and so that
You want to?
those panels will take up a certain amount of space. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, but 1 megawatt of solar should take up between 7 and 8 acres. Is that, like, I don't know if people can fact check me if I'm wrong on that. So that's what the amount of space taken up.
where is-
Beyond that, if you have 1 megawatt of solar, you want to calculate how much energy is going to be created from it.
I get that piece.
Yep,
Yeah.
and so if you have 1 megawatt and you had a capacity factor of 100%, you would take that and times it by 8,760. That's the number of hours in a year. Okay? Now, no one does that, right? So that's why we want to ask, like, what's the capacity factor for that? But the space,
The size-wise is what I'm.
I just wanna know what the
under your
size is,
Yes,
and-
I get that. And so maybe we can get back to you with that. And Mr. Olson, we're going to go ahead and go to Mr. Logan O'Grady with Minsia for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, for the record, my name is Logan O'Grady. I know I was here last week, but I'm from the Minnesota Solar Energy Industries Association. And just as a reminder, we are a 501c6 trade organization, completely funded, driven, and directed by our over 140 member companies, most of which employ 40 and under employees, making us at our core a small business advocacy organization looking to create a sustainable, robust, competitive private market for solar in Minnesota. I think we can get answers to some of those questions, Representative Garofalo. Mencia member Cedar Creek Energy is collaborating with Mencia member Connexus Energy to do this project with the National Sports Center. I think there might be some differences between what you're thinking in terms of community solar and spacing and how we can configure the panels on a 5-acre rooftop. I'm not sure though, but I'll follow up with answers to that question. This has been a project in the works for many years that Mencia has supported. Again, it's a collaboration between multiple Mencia members. Connexus Energy, I mentioned, is one of our few utility members. And it's a really exciting project that ultimately will save money and cut costs. I think they mentioned $160,000 to $180,000 reduction in their utility bill each year. This was one of 3 projects that Mencia has been highlighting over the last year of examples of private industry going solar because it saves them money. Tattersall Distilling, for example, another great project, has the largest solar array on a craft distillery in the country. Flint Hills Resources, another Mencia member, is doing a over 40 megawatt project down on their oil refinery in Rosemount, Minnesota. Again, all these decisions are being made for economic reasons. It cuts energy bills and ultimately saves costs. Just wanted to pop in today to say we support this bill for those reasons, and we'll get answers to your questions. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Mr. O'Grady. There wasn't anyone else signed up to speak on this? Anyone else? It doesn't look like it. Any other questions or comments by committee? If not, we'll turn to the author for any final words.
No, this is a good bill, and I do hope we can get support. It's not going to take up any farmland. It's an excellent opportunity on a state building. And so with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to renew my motion to have House File 299 laid over for possible inclusion.
And the bill is laid over.
Thank you.
So much, Representative. And next, we are going to have a presentation from the Prairie Island Indian community on the Net Zero project. You may recall that we funded this through the RDA a few years ago, and so we're going to get an update. Welcome to committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Blake Johnson. I'm the Senior State Government Relations Specialist for the Prairie Island Indian Community, and also a tribal member. My Dakota name is Hokshita Mazawambali, which means Iron Eagle Boy. I grew up and lived on the reservation, and just an exciting project for our community to partake in and to learn a lot about. What I'll do now is kind of just give a little brief history of the project. For when the first initial, where we'll start is where back in 2017 in the budget bill, Prairie Island was rewarded the chance to go after RDA funding, which is the Renewable Development Account. Before that, we were not able to access this account as we are not XL ratepayers and do not receive our power from XL when we're only about just over 700 yards away from that. So back in 2017, this was passed. Thankfully to the members that were in the Energy Committee, and at the time it was Chair Garofalo. So thank you very much for that. And at the same time, it was the first time we proposed this Prairie Island Net Zero project. We didn't know exactly what it would entail. We weren't experts in energy by any means, and just given the opportunity to bring this to our tribal community for a new look on energy. Back in 2020, it was passed and we appropriated $46.2 million to the Prairie Island Indian community to assist in becoming a net zero energy community. That's when it all started. We brought in and started to bring in some people that knew this business and could develop something that could work for our community. And then back in the January of 2021, we signed the grant agreement with the Minnesota Department of Commerce. So that's where the little brief history on the legislative process and where we got started at. And what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Andrea Zimmerman, who's our energy manager for the tribe, to give the report on the project and what we've done so far and where we're going to be going.
Great. Welcome to committee. Again, please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. Andrea Zimmerman, Energy Program Manager with the Prairie Island Indian Community. So from the beginning, the Net Zero Project has been a really essential part of supporting Prairie Island Indian community's progress towards its goal to become a net zero community, which is to eliminate or offset carbon emissions for the whole community. And as set out in Minnesota state law, Prairie Island's Net Zero Project must go through 3 phases. The first phase is to develop a net zero plan. We completed this in 2021. The second phase was to select contractors who would be able to design and implement solutions for us. This was completed in December 2022. And the third phase is to design and implement these solutions in the real world with the contractors selected. And that is ongoing beginning this year in 2023 and continuing for the next few years. So I'm happy to share highlights from our work over the last 3 phases and take any questions that the members may have today. So for phase 1, we started the project by hiring consultants. We looked to legal, strategy, technical experts, really those with specialized energy expertise to support the Prairie Island Indian community in understanding what this project should be or could be for the community. And we brought in folks to support the project from the beginning, starting all the way in phase 1 through phase 3. And those folks are really necessary to support Prairie Island, given the size and complexity of a project like this. The consultants supported working with Prairie Island in community engagement. It's been important to the community from the beginning that community members have a say, have a perspective on what this project is and what it means to the community. Prairie Island conducted a wide range of different engagement activities. We held forums, interviews, focus groups to collect input to really understand what community values and priorities were that they wanted to see incorporated into the project. And then we made that happen with the project design. The third part of phase 3 was to establish a baseline. So to really understand how much emissions we needed to eliminate in order to achieve net zero. What does that look like? So we focused on scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. So that would be emissions from on-site fuel consumption as well as purchased electricity. We also worked with pre-COVID 2019 data, which we felt was the best standard of what typical operations at the Prairie Island Indian community are. And then lastly, in phase 1, we were tasked with developing a net zero plan. So setting out a roadmap for how we could achieve net zero emissions over the coming years. And we did a technical and cost analysis, fairly high level. We also integrated this with a variety of different qualitative factors, taking into consideration tribal leader and community perspectives on what they wanted to see included in the project. And then we developed this conceptual design recommendations, which folded into this net zero plan, which was submitted to the state on July 1st, 2021. So phase 2 of the project really focused on the procurement and selection of the contractors, the partners we wanted to work with to design and build the solutions that would actually reduce the emissions. So initially we issued a single consolidated request for proposals, or RFP, that sought a single contractor that could deliver all solutions for this net zero project. We chose this expedited RFP process to meet what was at the time a deadline for a certified total cost to be submitted by the state in very short order. And so we felt that that was the best approach to select a contractor within that limited time frame. However, in parallel, Prairie Island also requested an extension of the certified total cost deadline for 2 different reasons. The first was that COVID, as has been discussed already, has had real long-lasting impacts on cost across the clean energy industry. We've seen costs in almost every area of this project go up significantly over the last few years, and we hoped that with an extension, the cost increases may lessen a bit over time. And the second reason was part of Minnesota law required that we receive 3 bids to be able to select one contractor from among those. So our intention in asking for that extension was to meet both of those criteria. The state did grant Prairie Island an extension, and that was for 1 additional year. So we had until January 1st, 2023. And this was essential to give us extra time to be able to procure, select, and contract with partners for the project. So with the extension, we reassessed our procurement strategy. We collected and considered feedback from prospective bidders across the state and nationally. We got feedback on what they would be willing to bid on and how it aligned with Prairie Island's goals. And we adjusted our strategy to reissue 4 different RFPs for the subject matter areas shown on the screen, and some alternative processes to receive competitive bids for a few of the other areas as well. And that was a very successful effort to adjust that procurement strategy. All right, so through this revised procurement process, we were able to successfully complete agreements as shown in this graph. This is also part of the certified total cost that has been provided to the state. Was delivered to the Commerce Department by the deadline of January 1st this year. And we did receive 3 bids for the solar electrification and the commissioning platform, the 3 project items that are delivering the emissions reduction as required by law. And the remaining costs that make up the rest of the net zero budget comprise a small amount of owners, operations, and contingency to cover change orders to the project cost, as well as consultant fees. As discussed, Prairie Island needed additional expertise and capacity support to do a project of this size. So several of the solutions identified in the phase 1 plan that we developed have not been contracted at this time, and those were primarily due to just the limited budget that we had to work with and the increased costs that have been going on in the industry the last few years. So that brings us to phase 3, which is design and construction of the projects that are under this overall net zero project. So of the contracted solutions, we are expecting the commissioning platform to be implemented this year. The solar project is under design and construction currently and is planned to wrap up by late 2024. The electrification project is also under construction, and we're expecting that to go through mid-2025. For these 3 areas, we will be doing an annual progress report to the state every July 1st to share how we're progressing with these different projects, as well as how expenditures are being made. And then the list at the bottom of this slide is additional projects within that overall plan that we hope to pursue in the future when we're able to secure additional funding through grants or other sources. So thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, and happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you for the presentation. Great to have you here and get the update. Any questions from commissioners or from, excuse me, members? I think Representative Meckland, you might have had a question on the last one, and I think
It was actually Chris and I passed it.
Okay, good. I
Covered it.
My apologies if I didn't get you on the list. Representative Hollins?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you both so much for being here. I am really interested in how, I mean, I think it's great to have this update on what's going on, but I also am really interested in like the greater plan here and how it interacts with the Prairie Island community. Like, what are the advantages and how does it impact the independence for your Prairie Island community?
Okay.
Ms. Zimmerman?
Madam Chair, Representative, yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's interwoven with a lot of the core values, which Blake may want to speak to further. I know this has been a project that's been a vision of the community for a long time, and it's closely tied to a lot of energy issues that the community has faced in the past. And so I think the community sees it as an opportunity to reclaim its sovereignty, to meet a lot of its core values through these renewable and clean energy sources. And in a few cases, find ways to sustain, to reduce its emissions, its costs that will support overall community benefits in terms of financials, air quality. The residential work we have not yet been able to fund, but we're hoping to with additional resources in the future. Will also play an essential role for community members as individuals being able to make changes in their homes. Will have a really big impact from health, comfort, cost, a lot of those aspects as well.
Representative Hollins, any follow-up?
Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I add to that a little bit? Madam
Please.
Chair and members and Representative. As for the cultural aspect, for us, preserving the land and water is number one for Dakota people. And this is a way for us to get back towards that. And as Andrea mentioned too, is rewriting the view of energy for our community. Living and growing up on the reservation and seeing a power plant in the eyes of 700 yards away, and changing that view of how we can view power, I think is huge in our community. And that is the number one takeaway from our community members, is how can we change that view for our community?
Well said, Representative Hollins. Any other question by Representative Auld?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for coming today. I just wanted to say I've met with the tribe and appreciate both of you being here and your efforts. What percentage, when this grant that's going through the 46.2 million, do you know what percentage of energy reduction it'll be for you?
Ms. Zimmerman.
Because I know you said that there'd be additional funds down the road. I was just wondering if you knew what percent.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Madam Chair and Representative, yes, we're estimating with what we've been able to contract with the appropriated funds, it will be about 53%
Okay.
carbon emission reduction of the total 100% needed. And that is largely due to increased costs over the past few years, just able to do less impact with the money available, as well as some other factors.
Okay. Thank you. And so just to follow up real quick, so when you're saying the 53%, that's on the energy cost too, right? Not just carbon emissions. I mean, that's reducing your electric output, that much cost reduction.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Madam Chair, Representative. So the 53% is just emissions.
Okay.
That's sort of our major benchmark in terms of this being a net zero project. Our primary purpose is to eliminate carbon emissions for the community. Cost savings are also important. And so we're looking at what that impact will be. Certainly electrification, and we are expecting that to reduce energy costs for the community. The solar will be producing some revenue that will help sustain this net zero project over time. There's operating costs, as you can imagine, associated with this project. And the commissioning platform will also deliver savings. So we're working to quantify exactly what that looks like right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was excited when I talked to the tribe, about the geothermal and those that were coming in to help with the reduction as well. So thank you again for your time.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I thank you both for coming today. Great to see you. I appreciate the update. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.